the ISC website and the ISC experience. And again, the way we look at them is that we need to win in the game on their field, and it's their game. They're setting the rules. They're controlling the questions. They control almost everything around us. The only thing that it cannot control is what we bring between our ears, and that's what we want to focus on. But after we team up with ISC and we register for the exam, and hopefully we pass the exam and we become CISSP, now we become one with ISC. Okay, and what do I mean by that? Let me share my screen with you so you see that. So this is ISC's website, okay? And this is where you will register for your exam, okay? You go here and you register for exam, and you can pay the fees here and so on and so forth. Everything you need to know is here. And after we register for the exam, we passed the exam and we got the results and we got the endorsement of another CISSP, can be me, can be Ron, but we got the endorsement from another CISSP and we got approved for our certification. Now we hold that certification. I would like to show you how it is for a member, for someone that is, part of the community of ISC, and how it's showed and presented here. So me personally, I have one certificate with ISC, and this is the CISSP, and the total report of CPE's continuous professional education for the whole cycle, for the whole 3-year cycle, is total of 120 hours. So 120 reported CPEs, okay? That's the cycle. So for this cycle that started for me in April 2020, previous cycle started 3 years before that, I need to report 120 hours totally for CPEs. I reported for last year, I reported for this year, so I reported forward. So I have, accumulated CPEs for this year. And if I want to go and see the details behind it and how it's structured, then I can do it here. And now I can see all the reported hours that I have and that are accepted by ISC. Okay, and now I have what they require me to have in order to be eligible to hold that certificate for this cycle of 3 years. Had I missed 1 year and one report, I think ISC is not as flexible as other organizations, for example, SANS or ISACA. Okay, I work with them as well, and I report to them CPEs as well. They are somewhat more flexible than ISC. ISC is very, very strict. So if you miss your report of CPEs even by 1 day, so sorry to hear that, but you will need to go through the process again. Because going through the process means that you need to take the exam again, the CISSP, and then report your CPEs and be very be very precise on this and don't miss your dates. Another thing that we can get from just the membership in ISC is all this area of community that we can get knowledge, and we can communicate on our point of view or ask questions and so on. So there are areas that we can be more active as a member. Also, you have chapters that you can start being active in, and ISC has I don't know how many chapters worldwide, but they basically have a chapter in almost every country that came to this understanding. I think in more developed countries they have more chapters. Unfortunately, not enough, but I'm sure that they have a chapter in Berlin, and we can look it up in the directory. But also, if you don't have a chapter and you want to start one, you can start a chapter of ISC. Once you are CISSP certified, you can start a chapter in your area. And it depends on the community that you can have around you. So, for example, if you all pass the CISSP, all 5 of you at the same time, and you want to start your own chapter called ISC GCP, okay, or for your area for that matter, you can do that. ISC encourages you to do that. Basically, we start chapters based on region, and as you can see, this is the map, the world map of chapters. And as you can see, there can be more chapters in a certain area. Um, in New York, we probably can find a few of them. And if we look at the chapter in Germany, let's look at the chapter. Why is it not moving? Oh gosh. Where's Berlin?
Top right.
It will be in the top right.
There's not on there.
We don't have a chapter in Berlin?
Doesn't look like it.
Wow, this is weird. Right? All right. So you might want to consider that, start a chapter in Berlin. This is the chapter, for example, in Israel. We have a chapter in Israel. Now we can go to that chapter and see everything that they do there. So this is a great, great opportunity for you guys to start a chapter in Berlin. And I think, being in this profession, the one thing that you want to have around you is a good community that speaks the same language. So it's not just you anymore as an individual, but also the people around you.
Yes, but the problem is that we need faxes for that here.
You need what?
We have no
Oh, you
worries.
need faxes. Yeah, you will need faxes for that.
Maybe that is the reason why you can't find it in the site. Maybe it's only offline on the paper.
Let's look at this one. They took the Germany.de and this guy's took Germany.org or U.S. military. Okay, this is the U.S. military in Germany. So in Germany, say for the industry in Germany, we only have one ISC chapter. Come on, guys. I mean, the industry in Germany should have a lot more than that, right? So I think this is a great, great opportunity for you to take the security, the executive security market in Germany to the next level. Start a chapter in Berlin. You can easily do that once you're a CISSP, and I encourage you to do that. It brings you up to the front of the stage, the world stage, along with many other people around the world, and it puts you and your network in a whole different position than what you are today. So it starts with a boot camp, it continues to passing the exam, and then it continues to building a community around you, and from that, sky is the limit. Not even the sky is the limit for you. So I think you really want to do that. A lot of people will be probably interested in the Berlin area, in the new chapter if you start that one. And by the way, you have Ran with you, who's also located in Berlin, and I think he can probably have that credential of good standing for a few years now that needs to have that you need to have with ISC in order to start your chapter. So great opportunities the way I see it for you. Membership costs, I don't know, $35, maybe $50 a year. And again, if you're a member in a chapter, then there's going to be additional cost for that, but that's all good. I think that's part of the deal. That's part of what you want to have. So again, it's not just passing that exam, because you get a lot more. You get a lot of communication. I get emails almost on a daily basis from ISC, asking for speakers in conferences. Today, online conferences are big, and they're asking for speakers and topics and this and that. And it's crazy. It's like, all this community works together, and you have so many opportunities to advance your career and build your resume with it. You know, you go and apply for a job. I don't encourage you to leave your job, but eventually, I think you will want to look at, you know, how much do I worth out there? How interesting am I in the community? So, you know, as an employer, when I look at a resume of an individual, I see that, okay, you work here and you work there. I see the sequence in your resume, but I also look for the extra. You know, what did you do outside work? How active are you? How interesting are you to our customers? Because at the end of the day, CyTech sells people and experience, and that's what I referred to before when I was talking about making money. So how interesting are you in the eyes of the community? Because you can also be a CISSP that sits behind a screen and computer and, you know, just reports the CPEs. But you can take it to the next level and do what I do and go and train others and, you know, and raise your profile and contribute to the profession and contribute to the people around you, and by that grow yourself and your career. So this can be interesting to a number of employers out there and communities around the world. Also, you can check that online, not here in ISC, but you can check that online. From what I know, in the United Kingdom, so England, with all UK countries around it, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia, you can get a work permit once you hold the CISSP. So, um, you know, now after the Brexit and everything, if again, if you're interested in this, this is interesting to you. It's just good to know that, you know, having your CISSP grants you a lot more than just this certificate. It puts you at the front of the stage of security professionals, the security executives. And studies show, and I'm not ISC, I'm not affiliated with them. I'm affiliated with you. I care about you. ISC will show you how the differences between being a CSSP and not being a CSSP can show a 50% difference in salaries. Okay, the real numbers are talking about a difference, but much lower. But still, it's a number. So the studies show, independent studies show that the difference between a CISSP and a non-CISSP could get up to 20% in your salary. So again, you already have your salary, you're already happy with your job, fine. At some point, you would want to look outside. And when you do that, now having your CISSP means that you can apply outside the country if this is interesting for you. You can ask for more money. You can show that you were active in the community because you had all these opportunities. So again, I encourage you to learn about this and not just look at it from, okay, this is an exam, I need to pass it, because the exam and passing the exam is just opening the gate to a lot more than that. So I hope, you know, I give you some more motivation on this. And this is the time for your questions, if you have any. Any questions, any thoughts you want to share here?
No.
I think with passing.
We cannot hear you well, Shafal.
Let's start with passing the test. 1 second.
Oh, let's start with passing the test. Yeah, I agree. That's the start point, right? That's where we want to be. All of us want to be. But, you know, again, giving more motivation to you and to your community and you guys together as a group. Now there's 5 of you, and I see a chapter, Berlin chapter. So I want to visit you next year when I can actually visit you physically, be with you, and visit you in the ISC chapter in Berlin. Deal? Drinks are on me.
Deal. We will be happy.
You will
Yeah.
create the Berlin chapter, and I'll have a celebration dinner for you all. How about that?
Agreed.
Good?
Yeah.
All right. Make sure to choose a restaurant with really, really good steaks.
Oh no, please. That's the first thing I found when I was here, because you do not get proper steak outside of South Africa. It's impossible.
It's impossible. Okay.
So I found a place that sells Argentinian steak.
Really?
Best. Yeah.
Remember that I lived in the US for a few years.
Even the US, I've been there plenty of times. Even the US steak is terrible compared to South Africa. You have not had free range cow.
I don't know where you've been in the US, but I lived in Colorado, which is the Midwest. You know, it's all the stories you have about free range and, cowboys and, it's the place for a good steak. Uh, but I don't know, challenge me with this. I'll be more than happy.
Yeah,
So we have this recorded, right?
yeah.
You start the chapter, dinner's on me.
Okay.
All right. Okay, cool. So from yesterday to today, you practiced some of the exams. What is your experience? How do you feel about the material that we covered yesterday? We covered a lot yesterday, by the way. Domain one, I think it's all about memory. There's not too many areas that I can relate to explanation because it's really ones and zeros. It's facts about technology, and it just proves the start point that we started this bootcamp with, when we said technology is the result of people's decisions and processes and all that. So again, domain 4 is heavy on memorizing, just memorizing the details, and that was a lot yesterday. So how do you feel about yesterday? How do you feel about the material that we covered?
I have to say that first of all, the first day it was domain 1. It was okay. We had to deal with one domain. Then the second day was domain 2, 3. We increased the amount of knowledge that we have.
Yeah.
But yesterday I feel like, wow, this is
So much.
growing and growing and growing.
Yeah.
And it starts to be confusing. It start to be, you already forgot what you learned on the first day. And again, how to feel like you yourself with amount of material. And there are also a lot of stuff that I feel like I know we cover 70-80% of the materials, but I still feel that there's a lot of stuff that is not there. Like a lot of information that you need to go to the book, go to stuff.
Right. Right. But I think there is. Jagat, did you want to share something?
No, I wanted to say something.
Yeah. Please go on, Valentino.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
I found that, like, when you do a domain 5 question, for instance, or domain 4 question, by the time we now, for instance, if we're going to do domain 6, then domain 4 and 5 makes actually more sense.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
as
okay.
As if there's questions from another domain inside the domain 4 and 5 exam, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, because it confuses me a little bit, because if I study on domain 5, for instance, with identity management, and there's a question from domain 6 in there, and I'm like, but we haven't reached this point yet.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Okay. Jagat, did you want to share something?
Yes. So I have a common question here. So how frequently they will change the syllabus?
They change the syllabus. This is a good question. They change the syllabus every 3 years. The next cycle is May 2021.
Okay.
But we already know of the changes. This is published, and the changes are basically percentage of weight between the domains. Information is not added, not removed. It's going to be the same book, the same topics, 3 years moving forward after May 2021. So you're good until May 2024. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
That was a good question, very important
So
one.
then,
Because vendors or colleges, online colleges, that try to scare you. They try to tell you that, okay, CISSP is going to change. You have to take it now. You have to take the bootcamp. No, you don't have to do anything under pressure, because there's not too much to change, to modify in the materials. the market stays the same. Massive changes are, probably 10 years out between previous ones and the next one. So I anticipate that in 2024, since we had massive changes in 2015, then in 2024 we will have that massive update in CISSP. But since you are certified, you will be certified within the next couple of months, then you're all good to go, to the rest of your life with your CISSP, as long as you keep good standing of your CPEs.
So just on that as well, like for instance, I've realized now a lot of, because I've done the Azure security portion from Microsoft.
Yeah.
And that's got a lot of the identity management things in that and in that aspect. And a lot of it that we did yesterday is, well, it's still applicable, but it's changed quite a bit from an identity perspective.
Yep.
So
and here's what I wanted to respond on both what Shachar said and you both said just now. I think, yes, it feels like a mix in your head, and we know that there's a lot of areas that we will need to go to the book to get that part covered. But what eventually, after looking at 5 domains and 3 more to go, I think what we can safely say about the CISSP that there is a silver line between all topics here. Silver line that you need to control. You need to be able to, speak about in the middle of the night. If I wake you up, you will know how to speak about the formula of a risk and what is a control. And the connection between a subject and an object. There is a silver line here that we constantly need to remember in order to be able to address the CISSP and expand our knowledge with the book. So you cannot just open the book and learn about the Kerberos vulnerabilities without understanding that Kerberos is a control for encryption. Hence, it's doing confidentiality integrity, right? That's basically everything we can ask from that control. And you understand that this control alone cannot provide security. And it's being used for the connection, for the secure connection between subject and object. So if you understand that silver lining, as you read about Kerberos, or any other topic and you expand knowledge there, I think you now have the tools to deal with the CISSP, to deal with the 100% materials. So if you ask me, how to address every domain, every time we add more knowledge and make it the mix even more hard to deal with, go back to basics, go back to risk management. Go back to the definition of controls and know that we can put our efforts in the controls, because what we're trying to do is really control the vulnerabilities that we have. We cannot expect efficient control or effective controls on the threats. Most likely we cannot influence the impact. So this direction, we get a lot of questions. They talk about everything. They talk about identities, and they talk about encryption, and they talk about network equipment. At the end of the day, ask yourself what it is that I'm dealing with. Am I dealing with the connection between a subject and an object, the secure connection between a subject and an object? Is this a definition of a control? And are we trying to define the control objectives here? Are we trying to understand the risk and prioritize our approach or our actions with it? These are the basics that, once you have that in your language, in the back of your mind, you can deal with everything else that is in the CISSP, because that's the area that will give you the tools to read the book, to control the CISSP, and not let it control you.
Yeah, another question that I have is, right now we are in a boot camp, and you're stressing us to the test. And I saw your message this morning, and I was super pissed because you say, you have 38 minutes, and I'm in the car, and No.
Yes.
Sorry about the word, but
that's my job, man. That's
sorry
my
about the
role.
word, but fuck you, Chen. I'm in the car and he's like telling me, yeah, guys, you have 38 minutes. Open the textbook, start to make another test. Sorry, I mean, I'm joking here, but you know.
Don't apologize. That's well taken. That's fine.
No, my question is, what next week? Okay, or on Saturday morning, I wake up, I finish the boot.
Okay.
How do we approach it from next week, from the next level to get prepared to test? And you send us this timeline or schedule, what we want to do. But if you can a little bit elaborate,
Yeah.
what do you recommend to do?
My first tip to you, Shachar, is to replace the microphone.
1 second, guys. Sorry, I will move to my.
That's a great question, Shachar. That's a great question, and I want to address it from two different angles. First, the first angle, the easier one, is that you have a plan. You have that plan for the 8 weeks before your exam. So follow that. You have links there for practice questions. You have links for groups and tips and tricks, and a lot of material that you can get to online. That one page that I shared with you for the plan of 8 weeks before your exam. Say that you register now, okay, 2 months from now. That's your plan. That's what you need to do. You need to between 1 to 2 hours every day, 7 days a week, between now and your exam. Okay, so you have the plan. The other angle I want to try and answer that question is that tomorrow, I think we're going to complete the 3 domains today, judging by the amount of materials and again the repetition that we have, looking at the same material from different angles, from different domains. Tomorrow, what I plan to do with you is, yes, do the review on everything, all the important stuff throughout all 8 domains, but I also want to try and mimic, simulate a day in your life when you have work and you're also preparing yourself for the CISSP exam. So if I'm taking a couple hours off everything now, and I think that's what you're looking for, Shachar, and what we're all looking for. If I make myself free for 2 hours, how do I make these 2 hours as efficient as this bootcamp? So that's what we're gonna simulate tomorrow. We're gonna practice some questions, and we're gonna work with the book in parallel to that. So we're gonna have everything ready in front of us. That's our CISSP mode, okay? And we're gonna simulate this, and hopefully, we can do 1 or 2 together, and then from that you can continue Saturday morning next week, in a month, every day between now and your exam. And know that I'm here for you. So if you need me and you to jump on a call, book an hour together, I'll be more than happy to do that. All right?
Yeah.
Okay, great, guys. Carlo, you asked me a question in an email about the number of keys for symmetric crypto system.
I did.
Right. So I would like to take the opportunity to try and answer this question with all of you and my whiteboard here. So I'm going to relocate the camera, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to direct the camera to my whiteboard. Hopefully you'll be able to see that and everything that I do here. So give me a second just to, just to get this ready for you. And so go back to domain 3 and that part of the table that we have, and let me just make sure
You have a
that.
steak on your shirt.
What's that?
It's a good one. It's a good
You
one.
have a steak on your shirt.
You like my shirt?
$50
I
minimum
like
steak.
steaks.
Everybody does. I guess so.
Hang on a second. Let me try and find the right way to share and see that you guys can actually see my whiteboard.
We can see the bottom center of it.
Okay. So what Carl asked me is that we have 10 participants. Do you see that?
No, it's
we
too
cannot
high.
see.
You cannot see. Okay.
No, really? Now we can see it.
Can you?
Yeah.
Now we can see it, yes.
All right. Let me divert this a bit more. Okay. So we have 10 participants. Okay. This gives me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. All right? We're good?
Sure.
Yeah.
The question is, how many keys do we need to use symmetric encryption given the fact that we have 10 participants?
We
So-
need n double n minus 1
Right.
divided by 2.
So the formula is n times n minus 1 divided by 2, which gives us 45, right?
Yeah.
The n is 10 and times 9 divided by 2 gives us 45, right? Do you see that?
The formula is clear from the formula
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
perspective, but
Right. I'm with you, man. I'm going to explain that now, okay?
okay, good.
So this is just a formula, but it doesn't make sense to Carlo and to many other out there, okay? So what is behind this number? So let's look at it. The principle of symmetric encryption about a key means that every pair has their shared key. So this is key number 1, right?
Mhm.
And here we have key number 2, right?
True.
And here we have key number 3. And then as we count them, as you can see, Carlo, this guy here has 9 keys, right?
Okay.
Do you see that?
Yeah.
Now, if we move to this guy up here, okay, this guy we already counted this key, right? So this guy will have 1 key, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? He will have 8 new keys.
I see. Okay, got you.
And we go on and on. And then we add them, okay? So it's from 9 all the way to 1, and the result is 45. Okay? Are we good with this?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say that we want to calculate now the asymmetric number of keys. It sounds pretty straightforward, right? Let's say we have, again, 10 participants. Each one of them has participant 1, key 1, or participant 1 and private key plus participant 1 public key. Do you see that, Cal? And everyone? All right?
Yes.
So these are the pair. Overall, I have 2 keys here. This guy here, participant 2, also have 2 keys. And so on and so forth. So 10 participants times 2 equals 20 keys. Make sense? And each one of them will now throw in their public key into a basket, public basket, with all the keys from everyone. So if we want to share information securely with this guy here, okay, we simply go to that basket, pull out, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so we pull out public key, we pull out participant public key, and we add it to that cipher message. Make sense? Carlo, did we answer your questions?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. So now you have that recorded as well, and you can practice this at home. And the more you do, the better you get in this, calculations. Again, 10 is pretty easy because, we always try to, challenge. I know I'm trying to challenge my kids with math questions from time to time. Asking them, what is 10 plus 9 plus 8 plus 7, all the way to 1. And, we all know that the answer is 45. Because
No, it's 55.
45.
10 plus 9 plus 8 all the way to 1 is 55.
No, sorry, we are 9. 9 all the way to 1. Sorry.
Oh,
You're right. You're right.
that makes sense.
See, that's why you correct me. And that's good. I love it.
I love to correct people.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Alan. No, that's good. That's really important because you just corrected me, because how can I have 10 participants and 10 keys, right? We cannot have that. 10 participants, we start with 9 keys. Great. Thank you.
It's coming from the heart, man.
Oh. All right, guys, are you ready for domain 6?
Yeah.
All right, cool. I
I
think
don't
we
think
have
we have a choice.
Oh, you don't think you have a choice? No, come on. You can have a choice. I will not let you have that choice, but
Can I ask another question before we start? Or,
sure.
Yesterday evening I did a test, and there was a question I didn't know. I don't remember if I have it here, but
Do you want to share with us? Do you want to share with everybody?
I don't know if I have it here, but I checked the answer on the question online. And there's a lot of websites, the same questions and answer. I guess it's a tool that you take from the.
Yeah, it is public questions. We don't take.
What I see is that there is a difference between your answer and the answer that was in the website.
Okay.
So I just want to understand when we have a dispute or the class markers is giving one answer, the other website is giving another answer.
Sure.
What do we do?
So for these questions, for these feedbacks, share the question with me. I'll reply to you and everybody in the group. If there's a mistake in class marker, I will definitely share that. But, if those websites are wrong, there can be wrong. There can be wrong answers on Google. Google can be wrong from time to time.
Yeah.
Newsflash. There are a lot of people out there, a lot of information out there. Not everybody's always right. I know I'm not always right, for sure. So, if we get this question wrong on class marker, then, by all means, let's correct the class marker. But if we get the community wrong, let's correct the community.
Okay.
So I guess my short answer is share that with me, and if there's some meat there to work with, then let's do it all together.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, sounds good. All right, guys. So today we start with the domain 6. Domain 6 is the shortest domain you will have in your CISSP. The shortest one by far from any other domain, simply because it speaks about a very narrow area of the business of security, which is the security assessment. So here, I don't know, maybe you want to write down the question, the objective behind domain 6, just so you can have it in front of you as you go through the materials. The objective here is, we know we have controls in place, or we know that we are supposed to have controls in place. In this domain, what we ask is, do we have the controls? And if we do, how effective are they? Okay? Do we have controls in place, and how effective are they? So the objective here is to discover the controls and test their effectiveness. Okay? That's what we do in domain 6, and that's a very, very narrow area. There's not too much to speak about this, other than the fact that methodologies methods on how to run these tests. So as you run those tests, and as you test the existence of those controls, and remember, controls can be more than technical controls. Okay, so I don't want you to run penetration tests including only your technical controls. You should run penetration tests on people, on processes as well. Okay, so as you run those tests, first you need to get management support, as in anything else you do, right? People need to know that you run these tests. And certain people in the organization, maybe you want to run a black box, for example, social engineering drill, and you don't want your users to know about it. That's fine. Somebody in the organization needs to know about it and say, okay, we're good to go, run this test. Okay, so you need some sort of collaboration. And also, what you want to do is that you want to scope and limit the area of testing, because saying I want to test my organization is not the right approach. We always need to keep in mind that we have limited resources to run the tests and limited appetite to deal with the report afterward. I run the tests, if it's penetration tests, if it's risk assessment, if it's vulnerability assessment. I just cannot deal with thousands of findings. I will be able to deal with findings on my number one or maybe two most important assets. We call them MVAs, most valuable assets. So, scope your work, define the objectives of your work, get consent, document everything, and then, build the feedback that you want to give to your organization or to another organization that you run tests on. Give the feedback in accordance to the appetite or the ability they have to absorb and actually act on these findings. Okay, I think that's the yellow brick road in domain 6. And again, it's a very short one, but it all speaks about that. So if you have this in mind, this pattern, this building blocks in how to test and assess and report and get consent and then work to correct, I think you got domain 6 covered. That's pretty much explaining everything on domain 6. So any feedback you want to share on this one, on whether just explain on how to test, and you probably ran penetration tests or assessments in your role or previous roles. You want to share that? All right, we don't have to, that's fine. Let's look at the first, the start point of domain 6. So as we said, security assessment and testing are all about challenging the control or validating the ongoing effectiveness of those security controls. Security controls are huge, a very important reminder here. Controls can exist in people, process, technology, administrative, technical, and physical. They can be preventive, corrective, or detective, or preventive, detective, and corrective. Okay, so when I'm saying the word controls, okay, this is continuing, what we started with, Shaka, when I tried to answer your question, how to deal with all this mumbo jumbo of CISSP, massive information. Controls, we need to trigger this: people, process, technology, administrative, technical, physical, preventive, detective, corrective. This is the environment of controls. When I know that this is the matrix I have in front of me, three-dimensional matrix, I cannot focus just on technical controls. And I keep emphasizing this because people fail their CISSP because they take the technical approach. Okay, one of the reasons you can fail your CISSP is when you forget that there's such a thing called people in the organization, and there's such a thing called processes in the organization, and they can be controls on paper, or verbal controls, or behavioral controls. Not behavioral biometric control, but behavioral as in culture. The organizational culture towards security is another type of control. You want to enhance this control. You want to test this control. Okay, you go to the CEO and tells you that, oh, wow, our organization, we are a bank, and we know how to do security. Security is done by nature here. Okay, fine, let me test it. And all of a sudden you find yourself in the safe of the bank because you were nice to people. Okay, you didn't have to break any firewall, you didn't have to hack any account. You're just there because you were nice. And the culture, that control, failed. And it made the whole structure of security fail with it. Make sense, guys? And that's what you need to look for in your exam, in your questions. CISSP will try to work with you around those extended areas of knowledge. We know that you know what a firewall is. We know that you know what a routing table is. We know that you know how to configure your DLP with rules and system set that shows those alerts, and you know how to block. We don't need to have you a CISSP that clicks a button here or there. We want to have you a CISSP, and that's ISC's saying, that's their statement towards CISSPs. They want to see you at the table of senior management. And you get the seat at the table when you think like a senior manager. All right, so that's where they want you to be. So let's look at Domain 6 again from that perspective. We can run several tests, and all tests can be more than just technical. This one is directed to the technical area, but think wide. Okay, I think I said that enough. Cannot emphasize this more. Those tests can start with vulnerability assessment. We ask what are vulnerabilities, and we can run tools to test our vulnerabilities across the organizations on PCs and laptops and whatnot devices, but also on people. Okay, phishing campaign can be perceived as a vulnerability assessment. I'm not really exploiting anything, but I'm trying to figure out where are my holes, where are my open windows, and that's the vulnerability. Second one is penetration tests, and penetration tests are exploiting those vulnerabilities. So the difference between vulnerability assessment on one hand and penetration test is that in penetration test, I bring to light the actual threat, the actual exploitation action. All right, we talked about that before. So look at that area in the risk formula. Penetration test is a threat that exploits a vulnerability. All right. Then the other type of test that we have for all in all is software testing. Here we are talking about technical. Okay, for those organizations that actually build software, design software, and develop them, they want to test them because they have, first and foremost, the liability of a vendor. So you provide the software to someone, they rely on it, so you have some sort of liability that you need to meet in order for your users, for your clients to be happy. Because if you build a software that will cause security problems on their side, you will be held liable, accountable against those damages, and we don't want to do that. Okay, so again, going from just a simple code review to a whole organizational and reputational damage that can be taken into place. Audits are third parties, someone that is not the security people that runs on the organization. Yes, security people can run their own audit if they report to a third party, if they report to regulators. Most likely audits will be run by third parties that are not part of either the security team or IT team or anyone that is the auditee. Okay, you have auditor and you have auditee. Okay, so these are the main four tests that we can run on the effectiveness of our controls. As we do that, we can use automated tools. We can use tools to build the reports for us. We can use tools to map the vulnerabilities. We can use Nmap, for example. Nmap is a great tool to map the network and to map the vulnerabilities before the exploitation takes place. So in order for us to exploit a vulnerability, we first need to know about it. And most likely, when you map vulnerabilities, you work with automated tools. So technology brings to light a lot of your vulnerabilities. When you do software testing, you want to do software testing in a couple of, in two different modes, static mode and dynamic mode. Static mode will be the mode that, you have the software, you have the code, you have all the lines ready, and you do the analysis when you don't run the software. You don't execute that, okay? So it's just a piece of, bulk of lines that you look at, and you look at them, and you say, okay, this makes sense, this function makes sense to me. It's a static mode, it doesn't run yet. The other mode is dynamic mode. Dynamic mode means that I start running, executing the software that I develop, and from that, I'm looking for vulnerabilities in that execution, in that operation of the software. And we'll talk about that. The first one is called code review. Basically, a code review is a static test of that software, and dynamic test can also be perceived as code review, but it's not. It's more of an operational, functional review of your software. Okay, so think about that as you test the, for example, the interface with your users. This is not a code review. You test the user experience. You test the UX of your application, of your software. Server side versus client side. We talked about that yesterday when we talked about the different layers. Do you remember on what layer we have server and client, or client server? What layer of the OC model do we have that client server side?
According to,
I think in transport layer.
It's a session layer, I think, according to this exam.
Yes, it is a session layer. It is. So in the OC model, we're talking about layer 5. Okay, the connection between the client and server. Client and server can be, for example, Outlook and Exchange. Okay, so the Outlook by itself cannot operate as an internal email system unless it's connected to a server, POP3 or Exchange SMTP for that matter. But so it needs some sort of a repository to pull out the emails. However, if you look at the server, by itself, it's not like you can go into the server and read emails from the database. The database is not that kind of database. So it needs both sides, the client and the server, in order to operate. Yes, you can have, an application on the server that will help you read those emails, but it's not the way it's supposed to be implemented. The same thing for web applications. You have web application and you have the browser. The web application, the server side, is developed in such way that will ensure a good user experience on a browser. The browser is the client and the web application is the server. Okay, the same thing for mobiles. So this one, when we talk about client server, we need to bear in mind that there can be attacks on both sides, right? The server and the client. And the more people involved and the more we have on the client side, we'll probably be prone to or exposed to more of the people type of threats, social engineering, phishing, and all on the client side. Okay, so the more people we have on the client side, the more vulnerable we are to people's vulnerabilities. The process of exploiting a server runs through technology, but also through people at the beginning. Behind every server, we have human interaction of some sort. We can collect information, we can run reconnaissance, passive reconnaissance or active reconnaissance on any server based on, you know, social media, maybe vendor website, maybe publication that is out there somewhere. We can run the reconnaissance, but the idea behind the reconnaissance is that we do it offline. We do it without touching the victim, without affecting the victim, simply because when we attack a target, we don't want to that a target to be ready for us. So we want the element of surprise here. And keeping the element of surprise is when you go online and you collect information, again, from LinkedIn, from Facebook, job posting, comments like who is online, Google can give you a lot of information. Yesterday we mentioned, I think we mentioned the Target incident on how the CEO bragged in 2012 bragged about the project with Microsoft and how they became from, you know, all technology shop to Microsoft shop in 2012. I'm sure, and I don't know, but you know, being in this market long enough, I think we can all agree that if the attacker or attackers that planned the attack on target wanted to use public information against them planning the attack, this will be a good source of information. The interview with the CEO and the representative of Microsoft explaining 3 or 4 pages in the press explaining about the whole project, about the whole new infrastructure of Target. Maybe there's some sort of a detail there that helped the attacker. I don't know. So, you know, running the reconnaissance from the attacker's point of view, there are a lot of resources you can work with. And from the protector, from the defender point of view, just be aware of what it is that you put out there and what you make public. Talking about data classification back in domain 1 and 2, data classification should be big when you try to battle the reconnaissance part of the attack. But guess what? Yeah,
you're talking also about the. Sorry, I have some. Okay, but you're talking about the cyber kill chain model, right? Is there reference to this in the test, or they're not touching it?
Come again? According to
the ISC, I mean, are they touching this cyber kill chain model? This one, yeah.
This.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question about it, or?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So they can ask you, for example, what is step 4 in the cyber kill chain model?
No, nothing like that. Nothing like that. Sorry, I didn't understand the question. They will not ask you about stage 4 or stage 1 or what are the differences. They will ask you about the concept. Okay, so you will get the idea of what is a passive reconnaissance versus active reconnaissance. And here, you know, passive reconnaissance is not touching your target. And again, from the defender point of view, if they ask the question on how you protect yourself from reconnaissance, this is what you do. Okay, so they will ask more of a conceptual and not step-by-step type of questions. But guess what? After the attacker, your attacker, ran the reconnaissance, now they probably have the plan of attack. So what you want to do is focus on your assets. Okay, so your assets can and will start with some sort of a host. Okay. Those hosts can be discovered using simple tools, for example, ARPScan, Nmap. You can run those in your network without triggering too many rules in your SIEM or SOC, because this tool, the Nmap, if you run the standard scan, okay, and you can do it online, and you can do it now on your network, just run the discovery, the standard one, not the aggressive one, not the one that is trying to pound those vulnerabilities. but just scan for ports and services that are open on different hosts that are connected. This is something that every participant in the network should be able to do, because you want to communicate with your neighbors, right? That's the idea behind the network. We want to be able to run discovery, and we want to be able to communicate with our neighbors, and that's what the Nmap is doing based on the standard scan, the easy scan, the simple one. Later on, Nmap can be even used to run exploits as it runs the intensive scan. But as you run this scan, what you really ask is, where are my vulnerabilities, okay? So vulnerability assessment using vulnerability scanners. For example, you have many examples of scanners here. Some of them are free, some of them will cost you money. I highly recommend work with the free ones. Don't waste money on vulnerability assessment unless you need to report to a regulator out there and provide them with the list, with the reports, the fancy reports that Nessus will give you and Qualys will give you. These are all good for your regulator, not for you. And you can probably put this requirement for budget on complying with the regulation. But if you don't have this need to provide a requirement, by regulatory requirement, to provide vulnerability assessment reports to your regulator, use the free ones, because it's for you. Okay, you as a security professional, you will not need to present that to your management. Nobody's interested in vulnerability assessment reports. Everybody's interested in what can we do about it. Think about it. If you sit in the senior management meeting and you say, we ran the Rapid7, the Metasploit, that cost us fortune. Okay, cost us a lot of money to run, to own that piece of software, or we ran Qualys on the cloud, and here is the report. You're going to show them 30,000 findings, 50,000 findings, 100,000 findings. What do you think the question of your CEO will be at that point? What will be the question you will get from the CEO when you present in senior management 100,000 findings after vulnerability assessment?
How much does it cost to fix it?
How much does it cost? No, I think there's going to be a question before that.
Why wasn't it?
How we are going to address it?
I think that.
What now?
I think there's going to be a question before this.
It's going to be like, how did we get to this point?
How did we get to this point? Even before that, there's going to be another question. Let me share my experience with you. Why do we have you? You know what? The guy is right. If this is our situation, why do we even pay you? Don't put yourself in that position. Security is a catch-22, double-edged sword. If you do it right, senior management will ask, why do we need you? We don't have anything. We don't worry about anything. Nothing happens. Why do we need you and your whole department? You cost money. And if things happen, if you constantly get pounded on a monthly basis with ransomware, with leaks, with phishing attacks or phishing attempts, the same question from a different angle. Why do we need you? Why do we have you? You cost money and it's not efficient. So you need to find the way to talk about, your position, your department, you yourself, your role. You need to find a way. And I think, part of what the CISSP does for all of us is build this kind of language. There will be vulnerabilities, but those are just vulnerabilities. Take this 100,000 list of vulnerabilities, and now I ask you to build me a list of risks. And since we all know that a vulnerability is just vulnerability, we need to look for threats that are relevant for these vulnerabilities. This pair will give us the probability. Now I want to know what assets are relevant for this probability and what can be the impact. So by putting this all together, from a list of 100,000 vulnerabilities that I got from Rapid7, okay, I can probably get 2, maybe 3 risks. And when I present this to senior management, now it makes sense. Now the questions will be everything that you guys said. How much is it going to cost? What can we do about it? Okay, can we deal with 2 and not all 3? Absolutely. But if you show them the raw material, you know, people don't want to know how you make the sausage. It just tastes good. Don't tell me how you make the sausage. Show me the sausage. All right? I know sausages are big in Germany, so yeah.
But this means that actually you have to have, let's say, good risk management in place first.
Exactly.
Where you can actually target the real threats.
And that's exactly why we started with risk management. And that's exactly the reason why risk management is 40% of your CISSP. Because you need to be a senior manager. Okay? So you need to speak that language long before you speak the code analysis language. Make sense, Carlo?
It does, definitely.
Yep, yep. And that's the state of mind I want you to be as you're going to take the exam. All right, cool. Another way to test our controls is when we do software testing, we have what we call fuzzing. So fuzzing sends unexpected input to computer programs, to computer applications. So we have an application, it sends unexpected input. Where does it put you when I say it sends unexpected inputs? Where does it put you? If you remember, we talked about that yesterday. We talked about SQL injection and injection in general. Do you remember that? Cross-site scripting, injection.
Yes.
Do you remember this?
Yes.
When we said the controls that we want to implement are the input validation. So this type of test called fuzzing, whether you use mutation fuzzing, which modifies known input and sends them to your application, or whether you use generational fuzzing, which you have your own input and you send them to the application. Bottom line, what you try to test is how the application acts on different inputs. Okay, so the input validation is related to this. So as you asked about input validation, fuzzing can be one of your answers. And when you asked about fuzzing, input validation can be one of your answers. Does that make sense, guys?
This is more or like SQL injection, right? SQL injection also, we will give these kind of inputs to the programs.
Right, right. This is part of the test that we want to do under fuzzing. Yes. So again, going back to the client side versus server side, and we will complete domain 2 and then domain 6, sorry, in 5 slides, and then we're gonna take a break. Okay, so bear with me for a few more minutes. We're almost done. The client side, again, we said people are on the end of the channel, the end behind the keyboards, and the client is most likely to need a person to execute what it executes on the server. So for that one, client-side attacks, vulnerabilities can be related to social engineering. Here are your answers, your CISSP answers, okay? You get a question that speaks about client-side attack, a client-side vulnerability, client-side controls. Bear in mind that the client side is people. 95% of what you can do is around the people. Okay, you can use the latest version of Outlook. Great, but if your users are not aware of phishing attacks, they will click everything they get on the Outlook, regardless of the version of the software. All right, guys. And then we also talked about the static versus dynamic tests. And again, going back to this, static is when we have the static software without running it. And then dynamic, we want to run it first, run it independently, and then run it in an environment that is considered, probably you want to target the same environment as your production. You know, it's called pre-production or staging environment, but not every organization can do that. So any environment that can simulate something that probably looks like the production environment that you have, just to get the feeling of how the application acts in this environment. This is called the dynamic testing. Okay. And all in all, when we wrap up everything that we want to do in order to get those testing right and to wrap up the reporting mechanism of everything that we do, we want to make sure, this is the auditing part, we want to make sure we have log reviews, we have the right logs, and we want to monitor everything that administrators are doing there. This will help us do the auditing or the audits test. We want to do reviews of account management, and we talked about that yesterday when we talked about the cycle, the full cycle of identities. We want to make sure we have backups and that our backups are actually backing up the system. Again, this is part of the audit. And we want to make sure that we have those tests for program effectiveness, security program effectiveness, all in all. So logs are something we want to collect for audits, and we want to provide them to the auditor as evidence. We want to show account management reviews. We want to show that we are revoking those accounts in time, and we keep logs on all privileged accounts, on all administrator accounts. We verify those backups that we do, and when we work with audits, whether internal audits for our organization or external audits, these are all independent. Every audit should be independent, must be independent. So the auditee cannot influence the auditor, cannot touch the reports, cannot influence the list of findings or the audit work itself. This is part of doing business, and this is all part of the yellow brick road of not just CISSP but security in general, which we call trust. Okay? If I have good trust between the parties, as in encryption, as in network, as in identity management, as in subject and object, if I have good trust, same thing for audits, okay? Good trust means that now I have the good infrastructure to manage my risks internally and avoid those risks that I don't want to take outside the business that I currently have. Are we clear on this, gentlemen?
Yep.
Good? All right. Let's take 20 minutes break. Reconvene at 10:42. I will see you soon, guys. All right. See you in 20.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye. Thank you.